Hello and welcome to Casual Buddhism. I'm your host, Cindy Rossico, and we're joined with Venerable Dhammananda Pikuni, who is the first fully ordained Theravada nun in Thailand. And I'm excited to welcome our guest tonight, is it Lama Tsomo?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. America Lama, author and co-founder of the Namchak Foundation and Namchak Retreat Ranch. Is that in Montana?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Born Linda Pritzker, Lama Tsomo followed a path of spiritual inquiry and study, ultimately leading to her ordination as one of the few American lamas in Tibetan Buddhism. Under the tutelage of Tulku Sangkak Rinpoche, international holder of the Namchak lineage, Lama Tsomo has done extensive spiritual retreats in the U.S. and abroad and is fluent in Tibetan. Lama Tsomo holds an MA in counseling psychology, emphasizing Jungian studies. She is the author of the Ancient Wisdom for Our Time series, an exploration of Tibetan Buddhism meditation that includes Why Bother? An Introduction, Wisdom and Compassion, starting with yourself, and Deepening Wisdom, Deepening Connection. This wise and accessible series, based on the Vajrayana path, gives readers tangible ways to cultivate joy, compassion, focus, and fulfillment in everyday life. I think I'm going to stop there and just say welcome. And I have an MA in clinical psych, and I might start off the conversation. I think it's so interesting that you went. How did you move from studying Jungian psychology to Buddhism?
It felt like quite a natural path to me, um, because I saw as a child that happiness wasn't so much dependent on outer circumstances, but on the mind. So I wanted to study the mind. How
Hmm.
could I was fascinated with this idea, how could we be happy no matter what the outer circumstances? So that naturally led me to psychology practices and studying the best of the West, and then continuing on to Eastern wisdom about the mind and how we could work with the mind to create inner happiness. I also was interested in helping other people to be able to find happiness and practice that. I felt that it could actually be practiced and we could develop our capacities.
Mhm.
So it was a natural progression. And the Jungian studies turned out to be a really good preparation for Tibetan Vajrayana practices in particular because of the use of archetype. And I
Yes.
see, a Venerable Bhikkhuni, that you have an image behind you, an archetypal image of the feminine. And I was excited to listen to your interview where you discussed about the cracks in the wall of patriarchy and enlightened mind glistening through, and then those cracks join other cracks until Buddha mind is able to completely show itself to us. And I was so excited by that because the subject of my master's thesis was the evolution of humanity and our consciousness, first from patriarchy from matriarchy to patriarchy, and now the next stage, which I'd love to share with you. The Jungians believed that humanity was recapitulating the evolution of a human being from childhood, where we are joined with the mother, literally, right? And then we're born, and at first we don't really have our own identity, but we develop that more and more. And so more and more we develop a sense of ourselves as being a part, to the point where as teenagers we sort of think, actually I know more than my parents, this kind of thing. And then we reach the end of our resources in thinking, being so full of ourselves and so full of ego, we realize, like the prodigal son, oh, actually, Father Heaven and Mother Earth actually are much greater than I am. And I need to continue to learn from their wisdom and work together with those powerful forces. So that's just a quick, rendition of part of my thesis, but I would love to share that with you and just hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Yes, wonderful. Wonderful to see the journey, the journey from tell me more about this union.
The Jungian, so Carl Jung, yeah, popularized the term archetype. I mean, it was already a word, but people weren't using that word and they didn't use it in the way that he meant it. So he basically was describing the Sambhogakaya level of reality. And he said we can't really perceive it directly. And so we need archetypal images. Mantras are archetypal sound. And Tibetans even have Tara incense, for example, which might be archetypal smell, that anything that helps us to get the channel changer so that we can tune into the Tara channel or the Guru Rinpoche channel or the Shakyamuni Buddha channel. All of these archetypes are facets of enlightened mind. And some of them are wrathful, some of them are peaceful, some of them are uh, female or feminine. They represent aspects of the feminine principle. These are principles of reality, yeah? Or the enlightened masculine. So, for example, green Tara is a representation of mother, and we look at her and we think mother, and she's green and we think mother nature, and that is exactly what she's associated with. So there's an example. It just evokes the very aspect of enlightened mind that we want to tune into. And then her mantra also helps with that because we are so fixated on reality as, the twisted, confused reality that we see through the windshield, the muddy windshield of ego, right? The ego wants this and doesn't want that. And so that twists and colors the windshield through which we see reality. So these archetypes are a way for archetypal image and so on are a way for us to tune into the deeper reality, and can be so useful for us as human beings. And it doesn't involve just the left prefrontal lobe that has to do with language, but it involves the whole nervous system, the whole being, the whole mind that resides here. Yeah. And uses the brain as a thinking machine.
Yes, behind me is a white Tara. Then on my right, I have also green Tara. It's a painting that my son did it for me. Now, in the white Tara, you have her eye here, but not the green Tara. Why is that?
So white Tara, first of all, is almost like a contained inside of green Tara. Green Tara has 21 Taras within her. But then, each of those Taras represent a different aspect of the feminine principle. So white Tara represents the arts and wisdom and healing. So I happen to be a big fan of white Tara. And so I see her behind you and I thought, oh, wonderful. And it's perfect to have in your study, for example. And I like to have white Tara in my study too, because again, she represents wisdom and learning and the arts. I love music and poetry. So, and I've written songs and music pieces and things like that. So she's very special to me as well.
Yeah, in my sculpture class, I'm teaching on this coming Sunday, 2 days from now. I will be teaching them to do the face, but I choose to do Tara's face. So my students in class will do the clay sculpture, but with Tara in mind. So before we start, usually we would like them to also invoke asking for permission to do Tara's face like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is reminding me a question that students have asked me when I talk about these different enlightened beings, they say, well, Tara isn't real, is she? How real is she? And I
Uh-huh.
say, she is no more or less real than you and I. No more, no
Okay.
less. Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, it's yes, yes. When you said like that, and I quite understand that. They try to associate with human being.
Yeah.
They wanted to say that this Chinese princess coming from China. The white Tara is the what you call embodiment.
Hmm.
No, the Chinese princess is the embodiment of white Tara.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And it's just the opposite, Green Tara is also, she has her embodiment in the princess from Nepal. So
Yeah.
if you want, they want something that they can touch and feel, So I would tell them this piece of history, that if you want something that you can touch and feel, then it's the Chinese princess who came from China. And it is the Nepali princess who actually went to Tibet.
Hmm. Hmm. And also, there is an origin story, a story of journey to enlightenment about Green Tara herself. Uh,
Oh,
and there are actually a couple of different origin stories.
mm,
But these are really meant to evoke um, the feeling of that facet of enlightened mind. And I agree with you. We want to be careful about concretizing too much uh,
mm.
these aspects
I,
of enlightened mind. Yeah.
I
I-
remember early on when Venerable has a beautiful blue medicine Buddha in the Vihara in the back. And I remember early on, for some reason, I saw the statue with the curtain was up. It was very early on as it was being created.
mm,
And Venerable said, well, it was the full moon. So for some reason, the curtain was up, and usually people didn't see the statue. But I was a little confused because I thought, well, why are we praying to a statue? And I
mm,
remember what she said was, well, sometimes people need a little bit of an idea of
Mhm.
what the person and the spiritual energy is in order to help them on their own path of healing. And it was true for me because I prayed to that medicine Buddha, and it was definitely a spiritual experience.
Mhm.
There was a sense of I think I didn't quite follow, Lama, what you were saying in the beginning, but I think what you were saying is to get to the higher realms. I'm not quite sure how you described it, is that particular statue really helped me to achieve a higher level. Always when I pray in the presence of the Blue Buddha, my meditations are stronger, clearer, and more uh, profound. So I just wanted to say that.
Mhm. So you may, the Tibetans would say you may have previous life experience of connection with that
mm.
particular facet of reality, that
Um,
archetype. Yeah.
uh, yeah, but for Thailand, in Thailand, they are not familiar with Tibetan at all. So they said, oh, why the Buddha is blue? I said, the Buddha can be any color, really.
Yes. Yes, and there are the five Dhyani Buddhas. So the Tibetans believe that when the unity of the great pregnant, empty ocean gives rise to all manifested reality, the waves, if you will,
Mm.
um, it first divides into five different facets, different aspects. And these are the five Buddha families.
Mm.
And so the heads of the five Buddha families are male and female couples. And,
Oh,
and so the males each are a different color because each of the families is a different color. And the females are the same color as the males for each family, of course. And the females are the 5 elements that weave themselves into manifested form. But if we see with pure vision, we see that none of the forms are solid. We are not solid.
Mhm.
And physicists are now saying that we are not solid.
Mhm.
And that's
Well,
good. In Theravada, we will be talking about the 5 elements, that fits the understanding.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, please tell me more.
Yes, and of course, each one of them is we cling to it with an illusion.
Yeah.
because it is illusion, and we try to cling to illusion. That's why we have suffering.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
We're always looking at, will this benefit me? Will this harm me? If it benefits me, I want to get it. If it's going to harm me, I want to push it away. So we spend all of our time looking through that lens. And how can we see reality as it really is?
So, but in Tibetan Buddhism, it is more complex from outsider, like Theravada. They feel that, it's very difficult to understand Vajrayana because you have so many forms, so many colors. They cannot go beyond. In fact, what Tibetan Buddhism is doing is you need to go beyond what you see.
Yes. Yes, so we start with the complex in our practices, but they always take us to the utterly simple because our minds are complex. And so it can be skillful to start with these complex practices that give us imagery that our minds can grab a hold of if we understand that these are empty forms and so are we. And we can use these representations of enlightened mind as our pathway to the utterly simple.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to draw this to a close, and I'm so glad we were able to connect. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but it was lovely having you. And thank you, Venerable.